Okay, now we're in business. Shout out to technology and microphones and all of that. Well, welcome to Secretary of Shade. Let's try this again. My name is DDM. You can follow me online at Dapper Dan Midas. Tonight, we are going to be recapping the Republican National Convention. Okay? Now, said convention, in most years, we wouldn't pay that much attention to it, right? We wouldn't be seeing news recaps, or at least we wouldn't go out of our way, or it wouldn't be on the timeline, you know. But this year is a horse of a different color. Now, if you were on the last live, I stated that on tonight's, the Republican National Convention is not over. Tonight, I believe, is the last night. But tonight we have Hulk Hogan, Linda McMahon, Dana White from UFC, president of UFC, owns UFC, and of course, Donald J. Trump. Now, for those of you who follow this channel, y'all know I'm devastated, but I'm not surprised. As a wrestling fan, Hulk Hogan, Linda McMahon, bitch. I remember when Linda McMahon was in the storyline when Vince was cheating on her ass with Trish Stratus, and she was an invalid in a wheelchair, and then she magically got up out the wheelchair. I think it was WrestleMania or SummerSlam, one of those events. Like, I'm not surprised, though. I mean, if you're in the wrestling space, you know Hulk Hogan has been on record, on tape, saying some very racist things. So I'm not surprised that he's a keynote speaker at the Republican National Convention. That tracks, right? And so I am not surprised by that, but it's kind of like, you know? So we have that whole situation going on. But what was a surprise? What was a surprise was Amber Rose. Now, just to give you, let's go down. Let's go down because I got a list. Because this convention was very busy. When I look at my list, so who talked at the teams? These are, and you know, it was other people that talked throughout this convention, but just some key things I noticed. So we got to talk about Amber Rose talks at the Republican National Convention night one, and had a great time slot, bitch. They made sure to make sure she was on primetime television before the kids went to bed. The Teamsters president, Sean O'Brien, he had the Gold Star families from when we pulled out of Iraq, or, you know, we pulled out that messy pullout from 2021. And, you know, of course, J.D. Vance speaks. And we're going to get to him in a minute. Okay? Now, the thing with that is this. With Amber Rose, you know, first of all, the convention itself, whether you like the Republican Party, whether you support them, whether you're, you know, independent, whether you're indifferent, either way, this was a good production, bitch. And you gotta call a spade a spade. I know it's not what we want to hear right now, but this shit was together. And as a person who has watched over the last 3 election cycles, these conventions, as far as the Trump MAGA sector of the Republican Party, which is the Republican Party at this point, it's not a sector anymore, it's the party. This was probably the most well put together convention that they've done, bitch. And that's no shade. Now, the gagger is this. They were also smart this time. One thing I noticed throughout this convention is they kind of steered away mostly of the culture war stuff. So you didn't hear much about abortion. You didn't hear much about the infringement upon women's rights or LGBTQ rights or schools and things like that. They touched on it, but they were very savvy that if you're one of these people that's in the middle or on the fence or you're kind of undecided a little bit, you didn't get a lot of that, which strategically was smart, but morally and ethically was very corrupt. Because some of these policies that, we're all looking into Project 2025, we're all looking at these different things. Some of these policies, if you watch this convention with the sound off, or if you watch this convention not completely oblivious, rather, to what the other half of the policy or the party platform is, you will be like, oh, gee God, yeah, I think I'm gonna go with these guys. Because they were that savvy. Okay. Now, looking at this, what was interesting, and I'm hoping despite all of this, that people vote, most importantly. I hope that our young people show up at the polls. But what was interesting was they had Amber Rose talk at the Republican National Convention. And from a culture standpoint, Amber Rose is not in good standing right now. The people feel betrayed because here's the thing with Amber Rose, right? So she has this thing that she organized called the Slut Walk, okay? That is about women's rights and women being able to be sexual and all this shit, right? Freely. Which, hey, women should have autonomy over their own bodies and be able to do whatever they want. I'm a big advocate for that. But it's contradictory to the person that you're endorsing. Ma'am, how do you go from slut walk to now endorsing a candidate in a party who advocates grabbing on women and a vice presidential now nominee who is an advocate for a total abortion ban despite exceptions, with no exceptions, bitch? That is crazy to me. It's absolutely bonkers. And it makes no sense. And I'm sitting here looking at this woman on this huge platform in front of all of these people with a tattoo in cursive across her forehead, which, hey, I'm tatted up myself. So it ain't, but it's just very busy. Okay? And the thing that was scary about watching that was, and people are not going to agree, and I saw that Van Jones got roasted in comment sections about this on Shade Room in different places. But no shade, she sounded good as a motherfucker. She sounded good. And if you don't know, and see, this is the thing that's scary about these conventions and things like that. If you don't know the other piece of it, you'll be like, damn, she right. Damn, she got a point. Because she sounded good. She did not sound, she spoke very well publicly. Which goes to show you, black folks, we got to stop inviting everybody and their mother to the cookout. Now, granted, she is a biracial person, but if you watch College Hill and seen, other interviews with the Breakfast Club and different outlets like that, she says she really doesn't identify as a black woman. And I think Joy Ann Reid pointed that out. So we got to be careful with that, but that's a whole nother cabinet meeting. But if I'm a young person and I don't really know what's going on, which a lot of young people have kind of checked out, I'll be like, Amber, okay, yeah. You're kind of like, But outside of Amber, because I don't want to give her that much time, I don't want to give her that much time. But outside of Amber, what was more damaging to me, what was more damaging to me was the president of the motherfucking Teamsters Union, bitch. I gagged, bitch. The president of the Teamsters Union. Now, here's the thing. Is he claims that it's not an endorsement. I watched it live in real time. He claims that, he got invited to the table and he's the first president to speak in so many years. And I'm going to be honest, the speech as it was written that he gave was written in a very bipartisan way. So on paper, if you watch that speech, it was written very bipartisanly. But lines are one thing, inflection is another. And anybody who's ever done theater or acts for a living will tell you that. So on paper, this speech reads in a very bipartisan, we have no affiliation type of way. But the way it's read by its presenter was a horse of a different color. Now, this is the Teamsters president's name was Sean OBrien, okay? He spoke on the first day at the Republican National Convention. This is coming from Slate, okay? On one hand, OBrien was seeking to cozy up to Donald Trump, eager to stay on his good side in case he wins the presidency. But on the other hand, OBrien gave a speech that was no doubt anathema to many Republican bigwigs and business donors. He said that far too many greedy corporations exploit their workers and that America's laws make it far too difficult for workers to unionize and get contracts that lift their pay and benefits. Now, the thing is this. He's catching holy hell from the Teamsters Union right now. Holy hell. Because, see, here's the thing. You got to be careful when you're sitting in a seat like that. And he better hope he gets reelected as president of the Teamsters. You have to be careful when you represent a group like that and you go to things like this that can be incredibly divisive. Because, see, here's the thing. If you're not going to endorse any candidate, I, being in his position, and this is just me, okay, I would have just endorsed whoever I was going to endorse or not endorse anybody and not appeared at all. That's just me. But even though you're saying it's not an endorsement, the fact that a Teamsters Union president has not showed up at the RNC in I don't know how many ever years, I don't have the exact year, so I don't want to misspeak. That's an endorsement in itself, niece. That's the endorsement, bitch. You're the first one that came in years. And you talking all this, rah, rah, rah. The damage is done. And that was a big knife. That was a shiv in a Democratic chest. Okay? Your presence is a present, bitch. So now he's catching holy hell by Teamsters Union members. And here's the thing. You know what's going to happen? Donald Trump wins in November. Because I will say this, in that speech, the Teamsters Union president was talking some cash shit about them big corporations and shit. Donald Trump got Elon Musk backing him. A big piece of Silicon Valley backing him. And all these big corporations and companies. You think you're going to get some shit for your people that you think you're going to get? They will do the bait and switch on your ass. But also, too, I think he's probably, and I think somebody mentioned this in the chat, he probably is jockeying for a position in the White House, no shade. Some type of kickback. So it wouldn't be surprising if that happened. Okay? Now, what's also interesting, looking at this convention, like, you know, they had his granddaughter, Trump's granddaughter, spoke last night before J.D. Vance came out during Donald Trump Jr.'s time. And, you know, she talks about how how Donald Trump is a great grandfather, this, that, and the third. And I actually have no doubt that he is a great grandfather. He probably cracks them the fuck up. But there were serial killers who were great fathers, bitch. You being a great grandfather does not absolve him from being a liar, which he has been proven to be time and time again. But once again, Americans' memories are short. They're very short. And they're very, what have you done for me lately? And it's something that I noticed. I'll never forget, I was in Montreal back in 2012. And it was some kind of labor or transportation dispute going on in Montreal, and the citizens had took to the street. I was in the middle of the street when this happened. They took to the street with pots and pans, bitch, and they was banging the pans. And it wasn't even no big shit. Like how I would classify, like, bitch, we need to be out there fucking shit up. But that's how serious they take things. We, you know, and I don't want to bash the American public, but we kind of lazy, yo. And the American people don't think long term. They think for a quick fix. They want immediate results. And immediate results do not come overnight. Policy change takes years to undo. Policy change takes years to enact. But the people don't want to hear that. So there's this thing called recency bias that happens. And because you were uncomfortable for a small amount of time, that discomfort gets magnified. Politicians on both sides of the aisle will weaponize your grievance. They will weaponize your pain. They will fashion your discomfort as a sphere. As a spear. They will fashion your discomfort as a weapon. And use it to get what they want, and sometimes use your own discomfort against you. And I say that because Trump had the RNC, who, by the way, is Lara Trump, Donald Trump's daughter-in-law, is one of the co-chairs of the heads of the RNC. They had the Gold Star families. Now, the Gold Star families, they did a video package on the soldiers that were killed during the Afghanistan withdrawal. Okay? And this video package, bitch, I know a lot of you aren't watching it, I'm watching it for you, right? This video package, bitch, no shade. I was like, yikes, on bikes. Because they had the family speak. So it wasn't narrated. I mean, even though you had somebody editing this shit, right? It wasn't narrated by, you know, some person telling a story. It was the families speaking their piece. And specifically the part that I was like, yikes on, was they had the families, whoever put this shit together, They got some media. They got people who know what the fuck they doing this time in that Republican Party. This shit is not 2016 where he still won, but it was raggedy. This shit was together. And when they had the families talk about how Joe Biden acted when he came to meet them, I was like, yikes. I was like, yikes. Okay? When they described him looking at his watch and different things like that. Now, mind you, here's the thing. And they said that Donald Trump spent 6 hours with them. They were really affected by Biden not knowing all of the soldiers' names and not saying the names. And I say this all the time. I think I've said it on the show. The easiest way to get to people is through their kids. And when somebody loses a child, everything else goes out the window, and they capitalized on that. One lady says that, Donald Trump spent 6 hours with those families. Well, bitch, he's not running the country. He's not the president, so he got 6 hours to spare. This man is running the country. Now, I don't know what his schedule looked like that day, but I definitely will say this. Biden, why the fuck was you looking at your watch, bitch? And when people are in that kind of distress, they notice everything. They're hypersensitive to everything. And you have to be careful about that. Okay? As a person, fun fact, I used to be a mental health worker at a mental institution. I did that for about 2 years with Alzheimer's patients and rape and trauma and drug abuse victims. So the mental piece of that plays heavy. They also had, from my state, which I was like, yikes on bikes, they had the brother of the young lady in Harford County who was killed by the illegal immigrant who should have really, no shade, he should have been locked up. He shouldn't even have been able to get to that young lady to kill her. They had him on there. And my thing is, you can't blame one person. But one thing I noticed about the American public, we love somebody to blame. And let's think about this, right? At work, you have people that it's never their fault. It's always somebody to blame. You have people who, their children failing in school. It's not your child's fault. It's not your fault as a parent that you didn't pay attention to your child. It's the teacher's fault, right? And I feel like that is a metaphor that is indicative of American culture. Self-accountability is just like almost gone. And when you have people going through the things that they're going through, that can be weaponized. And I hate to say that those people got used, but I'm watching this and part of me is like, he's using y'all. They're using y'all. And I'm looking at all of this, right? And the icing on the cake is you have people in the audience walking around with bandages on their ear in solidarity with Trump looking 14 karat stupid. Looking 14 karat stupid. I'm like, you dummies. Then you got Donald Trump Jr.'s fiance, Kimberly G Foil, Guy Foil, whatever the hell her name is. She yelling at the audience the whole time. This bitch looks like a real life Simpson, Joe. Okay? From afar, I was like, okay, she's put together. Not that it matters, right? We don't want to beat on a woman's appearance. But I just like, ooh, up close, them high definition cameras. She looked like a real life Simpson. Like if the Simpsons was like live action, I'm casting Donald Trump Jr.'s fiance. Like, bitch, she has a role as an extra or something because she looked like a fucking Simpson. And I couldn't, like, the hair was fried, the makeup was cakey, she was washed the hell out. But one thing I noticed is they love a red dress with a nude pump. Sarah Huckabee Sanders had that on too. And it was also too, that was another thing. Sarah Huckabee Sanders talked at the convention. And I it was really interesting hearing from her because I'm like, sis, you lied to the country the whole time you was in that press secretary seat. And you did not answer questions. And, I'm going to be honest with you, and I know this may feel a certain kind of way to some people, but watching this RNC, the overwhelming sense that I got from this is that white men want their country back. They feel like the country has been taken from them. They feel like they have been emasculated. They feel like, they don't have a voice anymore, which is crazy to me. But more importantly, one thing I noticed is that for as much, and I don't want, I've learned not to do blanket statements, but fuck it. For as much as I see some white women, they out here, fuck the patriarchy, Me Too, all this shit, I can't help but notice throughout history and looking at this that for as much as you have some white women who will, they out here marching, the suffrage movement and all that, they're kind of like the top proprietors of upholding the patriarchy. And that's no shade. Even when you watch The Handmaid's Tale, who are the women, who are the people that's keeping this shit together and kind of manipulating shit back behind the scenes and getting them organized? It's Serena Joy, the white woman. You look at the RNC, you look at no shade, and that's no shade. That's no shade. For as much as they talk about women's rights and, right to choose, they stand by your man. And I feel like they do that because as much as they quote unquote suffer from the patriarchy, they get a lot of benefits from white male patriarchy. And when you look at history, dare I say just Emmett Till by itself, that's a case right there. They benefit off of that. So that's why, I'm going to be honest with y'all. When my grandmother would be like, I would be, this is when, before all of this shit just came home to roost. I'll be like, Grandma, why wasn't you out in women's rights? So why would you do that? Why you didn't march for equal pay and jobs? And my grandmother said something that knocked me on my ass. She said, black women always worked. We always got treated like men. And I'm going to quote my grandmother directly, bless her heart. She said, that women's right, burning your bra and marching, that's for white women. And when she said that to me, I gagged, bitch. I gagged. I gagged fiercely. And being a black person, it kind of was like, ooh. Even when people say that term, people of color, and I embrace that term a lot because, the Obama era had us believing that we was all one. But when I go outside and I go to different places and I'm watching these conventions and things like that, that's not the case. Everybody is their own thing. That whole BIPOC thing, that's something to bring black people into the coalition. But no shade, that ain't really conducive to us. And I may lose people for this point of view, but I'm a black person. That whole person of color thing, no, I'm black. Okay? I'm black. And watching that convention, I learned that. Tim Scott, you did all that dancing, niece, for you to be sitting at the kids' table. I didn't even see your ass on camera. And let that be a lesson. Because J.D. Vance talked cash shit about Donald Trump for years. And he's sitting in the vice presidential nomination seat. Marco Rubio talks shit about Donald Trump. He's on camera next to him. Tim Scott, your big teeth black ass is not nowhere near to be found. Herschel Walker ain't seen him since that campaign. Now they did call out Ben Carson, but Ben Carson is like a Sith Lord, so I don't think they even view him like a black person. No shade. His level of Sith is just so high that it's like, nah. Okay? But the thing is, he chose J.D. Vance. Let's get into Mother Vance. Okay? Now, Mother Vance, he talked cash shit. He's a former Marine. He served his country. He's from Middletown, Ohio, or something like that. So he's from Appalachia country. Talk cash shit about Trump. He's a venture capitalist. His wife, Usha Vance, is a lawyer. They have money, bitch, but they grew up poor. His mother is a reform addict. She's been clean for 10 years. We're going to clap for that, bitch, because I, of all people, black community, we understand drug addiction very well and the effects that it has on families. But when we went through that crisis, they locked our addicts up and told us to do better. There were no government incentives. There were no tears in the stands at the Republican National Convention when families were being destroyed by crack and heroin. But Mother Fit, the girls is in puddles. And here's the thing. When our kids and our families were suffering from drug addiction, they said, just say no, bitch. They cracked a motherfucking egg in a frying pan and said, this is your brain on drugs. But now that it's your kids with an even deadlier substance, it's the government has to shut our borders, prosecute the cartels. You want a convention crying. But if it was, when it was our kids, it was, why did you take illegal drugs? Now we understand addiction. Now we understand that it's not a criminal offense. It's an addiction. It's a crisis. Okay? Now we understand. It ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. And so, J.D. Vance from Appalachia, grew up poor. Mother's a reformed addict. Shout out to her. He's running for vice president. He got the nomination. He is Trump's pick. He comes out. Now, I'm going to say this. His speech was a bunch of nothing. He did throw shots at Joe Biden, but it wasn't anything to write home about, the actual contents. This Joker is smart. What he did do, though, he steered clear of revealing any type of policy intention. Any type of cultural feelings that he may have. All of that shit was kept the fuck out. He gave you a smile. He gave you a wink. Okay? And he said a bunch of nothing while kissing Donald Trump's ass, bitch. But the gagger is this. I got alarmed. I didn't get scared, but I was alarmed because J.D. Vance is 39 years old. J.D. Vance was born in 1984. So if I'm the Trump campaign, and here's the thing, here's the gagger. Donald Trump didn't even want to pick him. Donald Trump Jr. and Elon Musk, a few others, they said, Don, this is your guy. And when you look at it in juxtaposition to the Democratic side of things, you have someone on the Democratic side of Joe Biden who's viewed as not able to withstand another 4 years. Looks, like he's, falling apart. But then you have an older candidate on the other side, but his counterbalance, and this is no shade to Kamala because she's very well in her right mind and can do this job. But you have someone who is young. He'll be the first Marine as a vice presidential nominee, the first Marine. He's a millennial, so he can speak to my age group and younger. He appears like a good old boy, so he can talk. He's going to unite those people in Appalachia, the Rust Belt, those areas. He's their guy. And in states like Pennsylvania, Michigan, he presents a problem because he speaks to them. And you know what's so crazy? For as much as they say, oh, race doesn't matter, this, that, and the third, representation will always matter. And for the people in those areas, they got their representation now. So even if you was on the fence about Donald J., you can't write the story any better. A millennial whose mother was a former fucking junkie, who served in the military, went to college on a GI Bill, went to law school, married an Indian woman. Bitch, you can't get no better than that on paper. You can't get no better than that on paper. But let's take a look. And I know we're going for a while. Let's take a look behind the curtain on one J.D. Vance. So this is a little creepy, but I decided to use it anyway. So, Business Insider. This comes from Business Insider. They gagged me a little bit because I didn't expect this to be on Business Insider. J.D. Vance on Venmo. So for those of you who use Venmo, by the way, my Venmo and Cash App is at @DapperDamitis if you want to contribute to the channel. If you have Venmo, you know that your contacts, like whoever you're friends with, like when you pay somebody, it shows in the timeline unless you make it private, right? When you look at the Venmo, check out some of J.D. Vance's Venmo contacts. Wired discovered Vance's Venmo account and saw a few of his transactions and a list of his Venmo contacts. Now, being friends on Venmo doesn't necessarily mean you've transacted with people. It just means you or they synced phone contacts. So, bitch, even if they didn't exchange no coins, he got their fucking phone number. Let's take a look at some of these contacts, bitch. Now, where's it at? More than 200 people appear on Vance's Venmo friends list. Among them is Amalia Halakayas, a government relations director at the Heritage Foundation, the conservative think tank coordinating the controversial Project 2025. So is Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York, among many other lawyers for the Department of Justice, frequently decried by Trump loyalists as enemies and part of the deep state. So are Jeff Flake, okay? Ambassador to Turkey. Lobbyists from organizations like the Government Strategies Group, people affiliated with other conservative think tanks like the Hoover Institution and the American Enterprise Institute. Journalists and media personalities like Barry Weiss and former Fox News host Tucker Carlson. Tech executives from Anthropic and AOL. None of these people responded to requests for comment. Lanny Davis, a well-known political operative and former lawyer for Trump antagonist Michael Cohen, is among those who denied being Venmo friends with Vance despite being in his contacts. Now, once again, being friends with somebody doesn't mean, even though you didn't exchange coins, but anybody who has Venmo, if you sync your contacts, it's going to make them in your friends list, put them in your friends list. So his friends list in Venmo, it's funny. The saying follow the money never gets old. It never gets old. Okay? It never gets old. So these are people that he's friendly with. These are people in his phone. Folks, I don't know what to tell you other than you need to vote. Drag somebody in with you to vote. Because after this, and you know what's so crazy, this year at Pride, the Pride events and everything, some of my colleagues, my LGBTQ siblings, friends, folks, they laughed at me. I was like, y'all better enjoy Pride this year because it may look different after November. And they laughed at me. But these are the people that you're getting ready to put in office. And see, here's the thing. Some of their policies, I'm not mad at them. I actually agree. And as a single person who gets taxed to high hell, because I don't have any kids, and I make decent money, some of their policies work for me. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm never going to lie to you. But that culture and morality piece, I'm just built different. My mother raised me a certain kind of way. And when I see some of the things, transgender people, y'all better vote. Because they coming for y'all. They coming for y'all. And it ain't no amount of yes bitches that's going to get you out of it. And that's the bottom line. This is a man who's already admitted that if he was in Mike Pence's shoes on January 6th, he'd have pushed that goddamn election through. But you got to look at the psyche of the man. He's a Marine, bitch. He graduated from Yale Law, bitch. He's a venture capitalist. Ain't no feelings. He gonna do what he gotta do to get that coin. And he grew up with a mother who was an addict and was raised by his grandmother and they ain't have no coins either, bitch. He's never going back to that life. He don't give a fuck about none of y'all. He gonna do what need to get done to get what he need. You've got to really look at this shit. And this is why I do this fucking channel. It's not just to sit and talk, because I could be watching Bridgerton right now. I just got finished episode 4 of the new season. I got to watch the season finale of The Acolyte. Cobra Kai just came out. I could be rubbing my feet together under my blanket in the air conditioner watching TV. Okay? But it's not about that. This shit is so fucking important. Y'all don't understand. And I have some people who say to me, well, why are you highlighting all of this negative stuff? Bitch, because y'all not getting the point. You want me to get on here and say Joe Biden? Yes, Joe. Joe could barely make it up the goddamn steps of Air Force One yesterday in Las Vegas. So let's talk about that for a hair. Let's talk about that. So the wagons are circling these. Now we know Mother Nance made her statement on Good Morning Joe, but Mother Nance also called Joe Biden. Barack Obama had a discussion with Joe Biden. Okay? It's getting real now. Now, here's the thing. Let's think about this. Let's think about this. Okay? The Democrats are in a no-win situation when it comes to this whole Biden dropping out and new candidate coming in. They're in a no-win. If they keep him on and he loses, people will say, y'all had an opportunity to switch him out and y'all didn't. If they switch him out and a new person loses, they're going to say, y'all should have kept Joe Biden in. Why y'all switch out so late? They're in a no-win. It's a no-win scenario when it comes to that. Right now, it truly, for the first time in a long time, rests with the people. You will decide your future on November 5th. There will be no one to blame. There will be no one to shame. You will be deciding your future on November 5th. And that's the reality. Because the right, they're going to show up. And they're going to show up in large numbers. Now, even though Trump lost bigly last election cycle, the actual amount of voters that showed up for Trump increased from 2016 in 2020. This election year, people aren't enthusiastic about Joe Biden, right? So if all Donald Trump would have to do is maintain the same numbers from 2020, and if he chips away at those people disillusioned with Biden that have vendettas, things like that, he will win. And the polling shows that he got a pretty good chance. And I'm not saying that to scare you. I'm saying that to inform you. Because running away and hiding our heads in the sand and being delusional and acting like what's going on is not does not help anyone. I'm all about being optimistic. I'm all about staying positive, bitch. But I'm also about survival. And I never play myself. And I always want to know where I stand on the chessboard. And right now, we done lost a lot of pawns, a couple of knights, and the queen is under attack. So you got to get out there and vote. You got to get out there and vote. It's no other way around it, people. It's no other way around it. You got to do that. Now, tonight, I got to hop on another podcast, Black Wrestling Podcast, next to talk about some fun stuff. But tonight, I will be watching and keep a close eye on this Donald speech, of course, and a few other things. But you got to vote. It rests with you now. It rests with you now. It's no other option. It's no other. You gotta vote. Like, at the end of the day, all of this talking and shit, you just gotta get out there and vote. Early vote, mail-in vote, day of vote, whatever vote you gotta do, you need to do it. Okay? With that being said, It's been a great evening. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget you can follow me on social media at Dapper Damitis. If you want to donate to the channel, you can do that. Cash App and Venmo, Dapper Damitis, and hitting your super chats on YouTube. But as always, I love y'all. Thank you for joining. You have a great night, a great weekend, and I will see you next week.